The dust never settled in the ruins of Seoul. One pulled his mask across his face as he climbed over another pile of concrete and twisted metal. 3 years had passed since the aliens came, and the city still looked like a graveyard. He carried a heavy bag on his back filled with copper wire and circuit boards. Good salvage meant food for another week. His crew waited at the truck 2 blocks away. They had found enough today. One wanted to get home before dark. The patrols were worse at night, and he had promised Mihi would be back for dinner. She was making soup with the vegetables from their rooftop garden. At 12 years old, his daughter had learned to cook better than he ever could. The walk home took 40 minutes through the broken streets. Other survivors moved like ghosts between buildings, carrying their own salvage or pushing carts of scavenged goods. No one spoke much anymore. Words felt dangerous under the alien sky. The massive ships hung above the city like dark clouds, always watching. One turned the corner onto his street and stopped. His blood went cold. 3 harvester ships floated above his residential block. Their blue lights swept across the buildings, and he could hear the high-pitched whine of their stunned fields. People lay on the ground, frozen but conscious. Their eyes were wide with terror. He dropped his bag and ran. His boots pounded against the cracked pavement. He had to reach me. He had to get her out. But as he got closer, the blue light swept over him. His muscles locked. His legs stopped working. He fell forward, crashing onto the street. His body refused to move, but his eyes could still see everything. Soldiers walked among the paralyzed humans. They were tall, nearly 8 feet, with gray skin and 4 arms. They wore armor that gleamed like oil in water. They moved efficiently, scanning each human with handheld devices. Some humans they left on the ground. Others they lifted and carried toward the open ramps of their ships. One's heart hammered in his chest. He could see his building. The door was open. Please, he thought, please let her have hidden. Please let her be safe. Then he saw her. 2 soldiers carried me down the street. Her eyes were open, moving frantically, searching. She could not cry out. She could not struggle. The stunned field held her like invisible chains. Their eyes met for just a moment. He saw the fear in her face. He tried to scream, but no sound came from his frozen throat. They carried his daughter up the ramp into the ship. Dozens of other humans followed. Young people, old people, children. They did not care. They loaded them like cargo, systematic and uncaring. Within minutes, the ramps closed. The ships rose higher into the sky, their engines humming with alien power. Then they were gone, vanishing toward the larger ships that orbited Earth. The stunned field released 30 minutes later. One gasped and pushed himself up. His muscles screamed with pain. Around him, other people were crying, calling out names, searching for family members who were no longer there. He stumbled to his building and ran up the stairs. Their apartment door hung open. Inside, everything was exactly as Mi had left it. The pot of soup still sat on the small electric burner, cold now. Her school books lay on the table. A drawing she had made hung on the wall, a picture of the 2 of them before the aliens came. One fell to his knees. The sound that came from his throat was not quite human. It was the sound of something breaking that could never be fixed. He stayed there until dark. Then he forced himself to stand. He went to the community center where the survivors gathered. An old woman named Mrs. ran the place. She had lost her son in the invasion. Her face was lined with permanent grief. "They took me," one said. His voice sounded strange, hollow. Mrs. nodded slowly. "They took 43 from our district today. Every month they come. Every month they take more." "Where do they go? What happens to them?" The old woman shook her head. "No one knows. No one taken has ever come back. The collaborator government says they have the right. They say we must cooperate for humanity's survival." One's hands became fists. "What survival? They're taking our children." "I know," Mrs. said softly. "But what can we do? They destroyed our armies in a single day. They burned our cities. We have nothing left to fight with." One left the community center. He walked through the night streets, his mind racing. The resistance cells were weak and scattered. They had few weapons and no way to fight the ships. Most attacks ended in failure and brutal retaliation. The aliens would execute 100 humans for every one of their soldiers killed. But he could not accept it. He would not accept it. Me was out there somewhere, afraid and alone. She needed him. He had promised her mother before she died in the invasion that he would always protect their daughter. He had failed that promise today. He climbed to the roof of his building and looked up at the stars. The ships were up there, invisible against the darkness. His daughter was in one of them. He had no weapons. He had no army. He had no way to reach her. But he was her father, and a father does not stop. A father does not give up. One stood on that roof until sunrise, making a silent promise to the sky. He would find a way. He would get her back, even if it killed him, even if it seemed impossible. He did not know that beneath his feet, buried deep under the ruins of, something waited in the darkness. Something that did not know existed. Something that would change everything. The morning came gray and cold. One climbed down from the roof. He had not slept. He would not sleep until he found his daughter. His crew would go salvaging today like always. But now he would be searching for something different. He would be searching for hope, for weapons, for anything that could help him. He did not know. He only had 11 days before the collection ships left Earth forever. He did not know that his daughter and the others would be taken to a processing station, where humans were sorted and used in ways too terrible to imagine. But he would learn, and when he did, nothing in the universe would stop him from bringing her home. 3 days had passed since they took me. One had not stopped moving. He barely ate. Sleep came in brief moments before nightmares woke him. His crew noticed the change. Li Wu, his best friend, watched him with worried eyes. Park So-jin, the young tech specialist, tried to get him to rest, but one could not rest, not while his daughter was out there. Today they were searching the old subway tunnels beneath District. The area had been heavily bombed during the invasion. Most of the tunnels had collapsed, but collapsed tunnels sometimes hid things that were valuable. Circuit boards, power cells, sometimes even intact computer systems. The crew needed to find good salvage to trade for food. They climbed down through a broken station entrance. The darkness swallowed them as they descended. Their flashlights cut through the dust-filled air. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. The tunnel stretched ahead, blocked by fallen concrete and twisted support beams. "This section looks unstable," Wu said. He was a former medic, cautious by nature. "Maybe we should try another route." "No," one said. His voice was hard. "The bombed this area heavily. That means there might be something important here, something they wanted to destroy." So-jin adjusted her scanner. She was only 22, but she understood technology better than anyone one knew. "I'm getting strange readings ahead. There's a sealed space about 50 meters down. The walls are reinforced steel." They worked for 2 hours to clear the rubble. One's hands bled inside his gloves. He did not care. When they finally broke through, they found a heavy blast door. It was sealed, but the locking mechanism had lost power. So-jin worked on it with her tools while the others rested. The door groaned open, revealing a dark corridor. Emergency lights flickered to life, powered by some backup system that had survived 3 years of neglect. The crew moved inside carefully. The air was stale but breathable. They found the bodies first. 12 people in military uniforms, their bones sitting at workstations or lying on the floor. They had been dead a long time. One recognized the insignia on their uniforms. Korean Defense Force, Research Division. "What is this place?" Wu whispered. So-jin was already at a computer terminal. Somehow it still had power. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. "It's a research bunker. Look at this. Project Pegasus in English. They were working on something called powered armor." One's heart began to beat faster. "Show me." They moved deeper into the bunker. The main lab was huge, carved out of the bedrock beneath the city. And in the center, standing on a raised platform, was something that made one stop breathing. The armor stood 7 feet tall, a suit of advanced military equipment like something from a science fiction movie. It was painted dark blue with white accents. The plates were smooth but looked incredibly strong. The helmet had a narrow visor. Weapons were mounted on the forearms and shoulders. It looked deadly. It looked powerful. Sojin accessed more files, reading quickly. They were developing this when the invasion started. It was supposed to be the next generation of combat equipment. Neuralink interface, microfusion reactor for power, kinetic redistribution plating, enhanced strength multipliers. This thing is incredible. Why didn't they use it? Wu asked. They never finished it, Sojin said, scrolling through data. The invasion happened too fast. When the bombs hit, they sealed themselves in here. They tried to complete the armor, but they ran out of supplies. Listen to this last log entry. She pressed a button. A tired voice filled the bunker, speaking in Korean. This is Dr. Nam final entry. We have failed. The armor is 90% complete, but we have no way to test it, to control the surface. We are trapped here. Food is gone. Water is running out. To whoever finds this, know that we tried. This armor can fight them. The plating can stop their plasma weapons. The strength multipliers can match their soldiers, but it needs someone brave enough to use it. The Neuralink is dangerous. It might kill the user. But if humanity is to survive, someone must take that risk. Forgive us for not being that someone. We were scientists, not soldiers. The recording ended. The bunker was silent. One walked slowly to the armor. He reached out and touched the cold metal. In his mind, he saw Mi's terrified eyes as they carried her away. I'll use it, he said quietly. One, no, Wu grabbed his shoulder. You heard the recording. The Neuralink might kill you. Mi is going to die if I do nothing. One turned to face his friend. They took her 3 days ago. So Jin, find out where the collection ships go. Find out what happens to the people they take. Sojin worked for another hour, accessing military intelligence files that had been stored in the bunker's database. When she looked up, her face was pale. They take them to a processing station. It's on Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. They harvest them for biological materials, organs, genetic samples. They don't consider humans to be intelligent life. To them, we're just resources. Wu sat down hard. My God. How long before the collection ships leave Earth? One asked. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. Every 2 weeks, they gather the collected humans and transport them to the processing station. According to these files, the next transport leaves in 11 days. 11 days. One looked at the armor again. Sojin, can you help me learn to use this? I can try. But one, even if the armor works, how will you reach the collection ships? They're massive vessels hovering above the Yellow Sea. One step at a time, one said. First, I learn to use this armor. Then we find out where they're keeping the collected humans. Then I get my daughter back. They spent the rest of the day in the bunker. Sojin downloaded all the technical information about the armor onto portable drives. They found spare power cells and ammunition for the weapon systems. The armor's neural interface required surgery, small implants behind the ears. Wu, with his medical training, could do it, but it would be dangerous and painful. If you do this, there's no going back, Wu said. The implants are permanent. The Neuralink will change your brain patterns. You might not be the same person afterward. I stopped being the same person 3 days ago, one replied. The moment they took her, everything changed. I'm not trying to be a hero, Wu. I'm just trying to be her father. That night they moved the armor and equipment to a safer location, an abandoned factory that one's crew sometimes used. The next morning, Wu performed the surgery. One stayed conscious through it all, gritting his teeth against the pain. When it was done, small metal nodes sat behind his ears, barely visible. Sojin helped him put on the armor for the first time. The suit opened at the back and he stepped inside. The plates closed around him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the neural link activated. Pain exploded through one's skull. The world spun. He saw colors that did not exist. He heard sounds that made no sense. Then slowly the chaos organized itself. The armor became part of him. He could feel it like a second skin. Information appeared in his vision, showing power levels, weapon status, armor integrity. He took a step. The armor moved with him, smooth and natural. He raised his arm. The enhanced strength multipliers made the movement effortless. "How does it feel?" Sojin asked. One looked at his armored hands. Through them, he would reach his daughter. Through them, he would show that humanity was not just resources to be harvested. "It feels like hope," he said. Learning to use the armor was harder than one expected. The neural link gave him terrible headaches. The first time he tried to run, he crashed through a wall. The strength multipliers made everything too easy, too fast. He had to relearn basic movements. Walk, turn, reach. Simple actions became complex when you had the power to punch through steel. 4 days had passed since they found the armor. 7 days remained before the transport ships left Earth. One trained every night in the abandoned factory, while Sojin adjusted the systems and Wu watched with growing concern. "You're pushing too hard," Wu said on the 5th night. "Your brain is adapting to the neural link, but it needs rest. If you keep going like this, you could have a seizure." "I don't have time to rest," one replied. He was practicing with the armor's weapons, learning how to aim while moving. "Me doesn't have time." Sojin looked up from her computer. "I've been making contacts with the Resistance Network. They have information about the collection systems. A woman named Haewon wants to meet you." They met the next day in the basement of a ruined hospital. Haewon was in her 40s, tough and she had been fighting since the first day of the invasion. Her resistance cell was small but organized. When she saw one's armor, her eyes widened. "I didn't believe the rumors," she said. "They said someone found powered armor. I thought it was just desperate hope talking." "It's real," one said, "and I need your help. Where are they keeping the collected humans?" Haewon pulled out a map. "There's a massive detention ship hovering above the Yellow Sea, about 30 kilometers from the coast. They bring all the collected humans there before the transport to Europa. We have a spy, a translator who works for the... He confirmed your daughter is still there." One felt his heart jump. "She's alive." "For now, but the detention ship is heavily secured. Automated defense systems, soldiers, and even if you could get inside, how would you get out?" "I'll find a way." Haewon studied him. "You really love her, don't you? Enough to die for her?" "Enough to kill for her," one replied. Haewon smiled, but it was not a happy expression. "Good, because if we're going to do this, you'll need to kill. First, you need weapons and ammunition. The armor supplies are limited. There's a weapons depot 15 kilometers north of here. Small garrison, maybe 6 soldiers. If you can take it, you'll have everything you need." "Then that's where I start." Sojin worked through the night preparing the armor for combat. She installed better targeting systems and improved the power distribution. Wu made one rest, forcing him to sleep for a few hours. When dawn came, one felt ready, or as ready as he would ever be. The weapons depot was located in what used to be a military base. They had fortified it with energy barriers and automated turrets. One approached at night, using the armor's camouflage system. He had never felt so afraid and so alive at the same time. The first soldier died without knowing what hit him. One moved fast, using the armor's enhanced strength to snap the alien's neck. The second soldier raised an alarm before one's wrist-mounted blade found his throat. Then chaos erupted. Plasma fire lit up the night. The armor's plating held, redistributing the kinetic energy just as the designers had promised. One moved through the depot like a storm, his training as a combat engineer returning. He used the environment, collapsing supports to block corridors, triggering fuel cells to create explosions. The fourth soldier managed to hit him with a heavy plasma cannon. The blast threw one through a wall. His ribs cracked inside the armor. Pain exploded through his chest. But he got up. He kept moving, because somewhere out there Me was waiting for him. He killed the remaining soldiers and raided the depot's armory, power cells, ammunition, plasma grenades. He loaded everything into a stolen transport vehicle. But as he was leaving, a fuel cell he had damaged earlier exploded. The blast wave caught him, throwing him against concrete. More ribs broke. Blood filled his mouth. One drove the transport back to the factory. Wu was waiting, furious and frightened. He helped one out of the armor and examined him. 3 broken ribs, possible concussion, internal bruising, you're lucky to be alive. I got what we needed, one said through gritted teeth. And you also got this attention. Hayone had arrived with news. They're calling you the Iron Ghost. They're terrified. They've never seen humans fight back like this. But they've also increased patrols, and they executed 50 collaborators in retaliation. One felt sick. 50 people died because of me. 50 people who sold out their own species died because they were traitors, Hayone said sharply. Don't carry that guilt. That would have killed them eventually anyway. Collaborators always get betrayed in the end. But what you did, you gave people hope. For 3 years we've been beaten dogs. Now humans are fighting back. That's worth something. Over the next 2 days, one healed as much as he could. Sojin modified the armor with the equipment, making it even more powerful. Hayone's resistance cell gathered intelligence on the detention ship. They learned about patrol patterns, security protocols, guard rotations. The plan came together slowly. It was desperate and dangerous. Hayone would organize diversions across the Korean peninsula, drawing forces away from the detention ship. One would launch from a boat in the Yellow Sea, using the armor's jump jets to reach the hovering ship. He would breach the hull, find the detention block, free the prisoners, and somehow escape before reinforcements arrived. You understand this is suicide? Hayone asked. I understand I have no choice, one replied. The night before the assault, one sat alone in the factory. He looked at a photo of Me on his phone. It was from before the invasion when she was 9. She was smiling, holding up a drawing she had made. He remembered that day. They had gone to the park. She had chased butterflies. The world had been normal then, safe, full of possibility. I'm coming for you, he whispered to the photo. I promise. Wu found him there. I'm going with you, into the ship. No, you need to help evacuate the prisoners once I free them. You can't do this alone. I'm not alone. I have this armor, I have Me waiting for me. That's enough. Wu sat down beside him. They had been friends for 15 years. They had survived the invasion together. They had buried their dead together. They had rebuilt their lives in the ruins together. When this is over, Wu said, when you have her back, promise me you'll rest. Promise me you'll let yourself be human again. I promise, one lied, because he knew the truth. He was already not human anymore. The neural link had changed him. The armor had changed him. The moment they took his daughter, he had become something else, something harder, something willing to do whatever it took. The next morning, they moved to the coast. Hayone's resistance cells prepared for their coordinated attacks. Sojin checked the armor systems one last time. Wu loaded medical supplies onto the boats that would evacuate the freed prisoners. The sun set over the Yellow Sea. In the darkness above the water, the detention ship hung like a piece of the night sky that had fallen and gotten stuck. Inside it, hundreds of humans waited in the darkness, not knowing that one man in stolen armor was coming for them. One stood on the beach, looking up at the ship. The armor enclosed him, strong and ready. His broken ribs ached. His head pounded from the neural link, but his hands were steady. For me, he said quietly. Then he activated the jump jets and launched himself into the darkness. The jump jets screamed as one flew through the night air. Below him, the Yellow Sea was black and endless. Above him, the detention ship grew larger with every second. It was massive, easily 2 kilometers long, its hull covered in alien metal that reflected no light. He could see patrol drones circling it like insects around a corpse. At exactly 300 hours, explosions lit up the horizon. HFY's resistance cells had begun their attacks. In Seoul, a command post erupted in flames. In, their fuel processing plant went dark. In, gunfire echoed through the streets as resistance fighters attacked collaborator government buildings. The diversions had begun. One watched as patrol ships peeled away from the detention vessel, racing toward the disturbances. The security around the ship thinned. It was now or never. He angled his trajectory and slammed into the hull. The impact should have killed him, but the armor's kinetic plating absorbed most of it. He grabbed onto the metal surface with the armor's enhanced grip. For a moment, he hung there, 300 meters above the ocean. Then he began to climb. The automated turrets detected him first. Plasma bolts cut through the darkness, missing by centimeters as one scrambled across the hull. He found a vulnerable section, a panel that housed the ship's external sensors. Using the armor's strength, he tore it open. The metal screamed. Alarms began to wail. One ripped through cables and support structures, creating a hole large enough to enter. He dropped inside, landing in a corridor that was too tall for humans. There were 8 feet on average. Everything in their ships was built to their scale, but the armor made one tall enough to fight them on even ground. 2 soldiers came around the corner, weapons raised. One fired first. The stolen plasma gun in his right arm lit up the corridor with blue fire. The first soldier's armor cracked. The second managed to return fire, but the blast skidded off one's kinetic plating. He closed the distance fast, using his enhanced strength to drive his fist through the soldier's chest plate. The gurgled and fell. More alarms joined the first ones. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. One accessed the armor's navigation system. Sojin had uploaded stolen ship layouts. According to them, the detention block was 7 levels down, in the ship's center where the gravity generators provided false weight. He ran through the corridors, his armored boots hammering against the metal floor. Soldiers appeared from side passages, firing plasma weapons. One ducked and weaved, using doorways for cover, returning fire when he had clear shots. The armor systems tracked every enemy, displayed their positions in his vision, predicted their movements. But he was only one man. They were dozens. A plasma blast hit his left shoulder, burning through the outer plating. Another blast caught his leg, staggering him. The armor's integrity warnings flashed in his vision. He was taking too much damage. He had to move faster. One triggered one of the plasma grenades he had taken from the weapons depot. He threw it down a corridor where 6 soldiers were advancing. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. Metal warped. Soldiers screamed. The corridor collapsed, blocking pursuit. He found a maintenance shaft and dropped down 3 levels, using the armor's strength to control his fall. He emerged in a darker section of the ship. The lighting here was minimal. The air smelled wrong, chemical and cold. He was getting close to the detention block. 2 more soldiers guarded a large door. One used the armor's camouflage system, pressing himself against the wall. He moved slowly, carefully. When he was close enough, he activated the wrist-mounted blade and moved. The blade was made from alien metal, sharp enough to cut through their armor. Both guards died before they could sound an alarm. One opened the door. Beyond it, the detention block stretched out like a nightmare. Hundreds of stasis pods lined the walls, stacked floor to ceiling. Each pod contained a human, unconscious, trapped in artificial sleep. Blue lights pulsed around them. Monitoring systems hummed. He searched frantically, running between rows of pods. His heart hammered in his chest. So many people, so many lives stolen. Then he found her. Mi floated in a stasis pod, unconscious but alive. Her face was peaceful, unaware of the horror around her. One's hands shook as he accessed the pod's controls. Sojin had taught him how to operate technology. He entered the release sequence. The pod hissed and opened. Mika lapsed forward and one caught her. She was cold, her breathing shallow, but she was alive. He held his daughter close, feeling her heartbeat through the armor. Tears ran down his face inside the helmet. "I've got you," he whispered. "I've got you." A voice spoke behind him in Korean. "Please, help us too." One turned. A man had climbed out of another pod, weak but conscious. Behind him, others were waking. The release of one pod had triggered a system response. Pods were opening throughout the detention block. Humans stumbled out, confused and frightened. "Can you walk?" one asked the man. "I think so. Where are we?" "On a detention ship. I'm getting everyone out. Can you help the others?" The man nodded. One carefully laid me down and began releasing more pods manually. 47 people. He freed 47 people before the system locked him out. It was not enough. There were hundreds more, but he had run out of time. Footsteps echoed from the corridors. Lots of footsteps. They were coming in force. Then Wu appeared from a side entrance, breathing hard. He was not supposed to be here. He was supposed to be on the boats, but one was too grateful to be angry. "I know you told me not to come," Wu said, "but you're an idiot if you thought I'd listen. Come on. I found an escape route. Service tunnels that lead to the shuttle bays." He began guiding the freed prisoners toward the exit. The people moved slowly, weak from the stasis. Many could not walk on their own. One picked up me, cradling her against his armored chest. She was starting to stir, making small sounds. They moved through the service tunnels. Wu led the way with a stolen pistol. One brought up the rear, watching for pursuers. They reached the shuttle bay. 3 transport shuttles sat there, small craft designed for moving supplies between ships. Sojin's voice crackled through the armor's radio. She had managed to hack into the ship's communications. "1, you have incoming. Heavy presence moving toward your position. And there's something else. A war master. He's demanding to meet the human who dared to board his ship." "Get these people onto the shuttles," one told Wu. "Get me to safety." "What about you?" "I'm going to buy you time." "One, no." "That's an order, go." Wu looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded and began loading people onto the shuttles. One handed him me carefully. His daughter's eyes fluttered open. She looked at the armor, confused, not recognizing him inside it. "Dad," she whispered. "I'm here, me. Wu is going to take you somewhere safe. I'll find you soon." "Promise." "I promise." He kissed her forehead through the helmet's metal, then turned away before he could change his mind. He walked back into the detention block. The freed prisoners were gone. The empty pods stared at him like dead eyes, and at the far end of the block, a massive figure in black armor stood waiting. War Master Al was 9 feet tall, his armor decorated with symbols of rank and battle honors. He carried a weapon that looked like it could cut a tank in half. His 4 arms were relaxed, confident. He had fought hundreds of battles across dozens of worlds. He had never been defeated. "So," the War Master said in perfect Korean, "you are the insect who dared to challenge us. You are brave for a primitive. I will make your death quick." One activated every weapon system the armor had. "I didn't come here to die. I came here for my daughter, and I'm not leaving without her freedom." The War Master laughed. "Foolish human, your species is finished. Accept your fate." "No," one said simply. "Humans don't accept. We adapt. We survive. We fight back. And we never ever give up on our children." The War Master stopped laughing. "Then come, little human. Show me what your species can do." One charged forward, and the detention block erupted in violence. The War Master moved faster than one expected. One moment, the alien stood 30 meters away. The next, his massive blade was cutting through the air toward one's head. One barely rolled aside. The blade hit the floor where he had been standing, cutting through metal like paper. One fired his plasma gun. The shots hit Al's armor and scattered like water on stone. The War Master's equipment was far more advanced than the regular soldiers. One had known this would not be easy. He had not known it would be this hard. Al's 4 arms moved independently. 2 held weapons, 2 struck like battering rams. One blocked with his armored forearms, but the impacts drove him backward. His broken ribs screamed. The armor's structural warnings flashed red. He was being overpowered. "You fight well for a primitive," Al said, "but you cannot win. My armor is forged from materials your species has never seen. My weapons have killed champions of 100 worlds. What hope do you have?" One ducked under another strike and fired at the ceiling. The blast brought down a support beam. Al batted it aside effortlessly, but it bought 1 second to think. The War Master was stronger, better armed, and more experienced. Direct combat was suicide. He needed to be smarter. He needed to be human. He ran, not away from the fight, but deeper into the detention block. Al followed, laughing. "You run. Where will you go, human? This is my ship. There is no escape." One dodged between the empty stasis pods. His mind raced, analyzing the environment. The detention block had systems, power conduits, environmental controls. Sojin had taught him about technology. Their armor was advanced, but it had a weakness. It recycled air and regulated temperature automatically if he could overload the environmental systems. He fired at a wall panel, exposing coolant pipes. Blue liquid sprayed out, freezing on contact with air. Al charged through the cloud of vapor. One fired again, this time at a power conduit. Electricity arced through the detention block. The lights flickered. "Tricks," Al snarled. "Is this human ingenuity, desperate flailing?" But one saw the readouts in the War Master's armor beginning to fluctuate. The extreme temperature changes and electrical interference were affecting the recycling systems. Not much, but enough. Then Mee's voice came through his radio. "Dad, can you hear me?" He almost stopped moving, almost got killed. Al's blade missed his head by centimeters. "Me, you should be on the shuttle." "I woke up. Wu told me what you're doing. Dad, I can help. The ship's fire suppression system. I can trigger it from here. Sojin showed me how." "No, it's too dangerous." "I'm your daughter. Being stubborn is genetic. 3 seconds, get ready." One had no time to argue. He positioned himself between 2 stasis pods. Al raised his blade for a killing strike. Then every fire suppression nozzle in the detention block activated at once. Foam exploded from the ceiling, thick and choking. It was designed to put out chemical fires in ships. It filled the air in seconds, coating everything. Al's visor sensors went blind. His audio pickups filled with static. His armor's environmental systems, already strained, tried to filter the foam and failed. The War Master stumbled, disoriented, and one struck. He drove his wrist blade into the gap between Al's helmet and chest plate. Alien blood sprayed green. The War Master roared and grabbed one with 2 arms, crushing the armor's chest plates. They fell together, rolling through the foam. Al's blade skittered away. His weapons fired blindly. One found the War Master's recycling intake port on the armor's back, the place where the suit processed air. He jammed his plasma gun against it and fired. The blast penetrated the armor directly into the environmental systems. The War Master's armor began to overheat catastrophically. Coolant mixed with foam. Electricity arced. The alien's grip loosened. One pulled free and grabbed Al's own blade. With the armor's enhanced strength, he lifted the massive weapon and brought it down. War Master Al, who had conquered worlds and killed champions, died in a detention block filled with foam, killed by a human he had called primitive. One dropped the blade. His armor was failing. Cracks ran through the chest plates. The power levels were at 15%. He could barely walk, but Mee's voice came through the radio again, stronger now. "Dad, the shuttle is ready, but the detention block is collapsing. You need to hurry." He looked around. The fight had damaged the block's support structures. The ceiling groaned. One limped toward the shuttle bay, every step agony. He could feel his broken ribs grinding. The Neuralink was giving him a splitting headache. The armor systems were failing one by one. He made it to the shuttle bay. Wu waited at the ramp of the last shuttle, waving frantically. Inside, one could see the freed prisoners, and there in the doorway stood me. She was crying and smiling at the same time. One tried to run. His legs failed. He fell to his knees. The armor was shutting down. Behind him, the detention block collapsed with a sound like thunder. Debris rained down. The shuttle bay began to decompress. Then Mi was there, grabbing his armored hand. "Come on, Dad, we have to go together." Her small hand in his armored one. The touch gave him strength he did not know he had. One stood. He stumbled to the shuttle. Wu hit the ramp closure. The shuttle launched just as the bay explosively decompressed. Sojin's voice came through every shuttle radio. "I've hacked the ship's navigation. Autopilot is engaged. You'll reach the coast in 15 minutes, and I've got a bonus. The ship's data banks, everything they know about human processing, about their operations on Earth, about their weaknesses." The shuttle flew through the night sky. One finally let himself collapse. Wu and two other former medical personnel worked to get him out of the damaged armor. Mi held his hand the entire time, refusing to let go. "You came for me," she whispered. "You really came." "Always," one said. "I will always come for you." Behind them, the massive detention ship began to list. The damage one had caused, combined with Sojin's hacking, had crippled its systems. It was falling, slowly, toward the Yellow Sea. By the time it hit the water, every human aboard was gone. 143 lives saved. They reached the coast as dawn broke. Haywan's resistance cells were there, along with medical teams. The freed prisoners were weak but alive. Wu immediately began treating the worst cases. One sat on the beach, Mi wrapped in a blanket beside him, and watched the sun rise. "What happens now?" Mi asked. One looked at the damaged armor lying in the sand. "Now we fight back, really fight back. This was just the beginning." Over the next days, the data Sojin had stolen revealed the truth about the occupation, the processing stations, the harvest quotas, the casual brutality with which the aliens viewed humanity. But it also revealed something they had not wanted anyone to know. They were afraid. The attack on the detention ship had shocked the Empire. Humans were not supposed to fight back. Humans were resources, and resources did not resist. Across Earth, the story of the Iron Ghost spread. A man in powered armor who had stormed an alien warship and rescued his daughter. It was the kind of story people needed. It gave them hope. Resistance cells that had been hiding for 3 years suddenly became bold. Attacks on facilities increased. Humans stopped cooperating with the occupation. The High Command debated their options. Some wanted to exterminate humanity completely. Others suggested withdrawal. Earth was becoming too costly. The humans were proving more trouble than they were worth. 2 weeks after the rescue, one sat in the factory with Sojin and a team of engineers. They had recovered the damaged 7 armor and were rebuilding it. But more importantly, they were building copies. 3 more suits were under construction, using technology and human ingenuity. "We've had a message," Haywan said, entering the factory. "From Tokyo. They found another military bunker, another armor prototype, and there are rumors of more. In Beijing, in Moscow, in New York. The old governments were working on these all over the world." "How many?" one asked. "We don't know yet. Dozens, maybe hundreds. But it means something, one. It means the fight is spreading. Humans are waking up." That night, Mi found her father on the factory roof, looking at the stars. The ship still hung in the sky, dark and threatening, but they seemed smaller now, less permanent. "Wu says you want to keep fighting," Mi said. "I have to, not just for you anymore, for everyone." "Then teach me. I want to learn to fight too." One looked at his daughter. She had been through hell. She had been stolen, imprisoned, nearly processed like an animal. but her eyes were fierce. She was 12 years old and she refused to be a victim. "You're too young. You were young once too, and someone taught you. They think we're weak. They think we're resources. Let's prove them wrong together." One pulled his daughter close. Around them the factory hummed with activity. Engineers working through the night, resistance fighters training, weapons being built, armor being repaired. 3 years ago, they had come to Earth expecting an easy harvest. They had found what they thought were primitives, weak and divided. They had been wrong. One father's desperate love for his daughter had sparked something the aliens could not understand. Hope, defiance, the absolute refusal to submit, and now that fire was spreading. One looked up at the ships one more time. "You made a mistake coming here. You should have killed us all when you had the chance, because now we know we can fight you. Now we know we can win." In the darkness above, the alien occupiers did not yet understand what was coming, but they would learn. Humanity was not resources to be harvested. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was stubborn, inventive, and absolutely unwilling to go quietly into extinction. The war was just beginning, and this time the humans would not be fighting to survive. They would be fighting to win.